Welcome to this lesson. Andre and our staff have combed through our best lectures, speeches, and presentations to bring you today's principle. As you watch these lessons, keep in mind how you might best apply the morals, wisdom, and principles in your ordinary daily activities. We know that what we practice and support with intention, we can improve on. Leadership and diversity advocacy requires that we practice both mentally and in the demonstration of our values. Take this time to reflect on your behaviors, build on your strengths, and minimize your areas of weakness. Remember, we look forward to seeing who you become. Andre and our team at AM Horizons will start you on this journey now.
I want to make sure we have an environment that we can ask these questions. And I want us to think about this as any athletes or anyone ever participated in sports at all, right? Yeah. So in those who haven't, you can get along with this analogy too, right? So I want to make sure that this is kind of our practice workout facility. Right? So we practice and we do all this stuff, and we might not get it all right in here because when we hit the field, we what? That's when we get it right. So I want to make sure we create that environment. So you can never offend me. There's no dumb question. I'm passionate, so I hope that doesn't come off as being, like I'm yelling at you or anything like that, but I get excited about this stuff. So I want to make sure that happens. And so that different experiences, those difference of you don't have to protect me. My job is to protect you. Okay? And sometimes I have to protect you from yourself. So I may ask some questions, or it's funny, people will say, "Well, I'm playing the devil's advocate." Let me just let you in on something. The devil does not need an advocate. He's been more evil longer than you've been alive, so he's doing all right by himself. Okay? But if you have something you want to explore, we can explore that. Okay? So the devil does not need an advocate. What else might be a barrier to teaching and learning? Yeah. Try to do my best to make sure that I hit all of them as much as possible. I don't know if you noticed that the first day or not, right? So I try to hit all of them. Anything else?
We all have
So maybe motivations. And I'm gonna put this one because nobody said it yet. Right. So my perceived difference in race, right? So I'm a black man, and for some folks that means something, for other folks it didn't mean anything. So I think those are important things to address. I will tell you that I do not approach or see things from a black perspective. I really, and I think you'll see that as we go through the lectures and whatnot. Yeah, so I'll just leave it right there. So before we get into today's lesson, anything from Monday that excited you, that made you think, the last couple of days, you're like, wow, okay. Anything from last week's lecture? Yes.
Like the whole
Okay. So the relationship between the soul and the body. Yeah. And we'll touch on that today. Anything else? You don't have to have it. Yes.
along those lines, I liked how it led to the fact that when we separate spirit from body, it's easy to objectify people and different things, and that applies to a lot of things.
Yeah, it applies to a lot of different things, right? So how we, treat quote unquote foreigners, right? How we treat or objectify women, how we, so forth and so on. So there's that. One of the things I want to illuminate and not in somewhat caution us a little bit is this idea that a lot of stuff that we'll be talking about, particularly in racial equity and educational equity, will appear to fall along racial lines. And so what I want us to do is to use those learnings about those racial constructs as a metaphor for other constructs. Right? So when I'm talking or addressing issues of race, I'm also talking about other things, but I'm using race as the metaphor or the tool because it is one of our more dominant plaguing issues, and it's also a part of our original DNA of this country in terms of how we dealt with that or not dealt with that, right? So, I want you to think outside of the box, but also be in the box with it, right? So a couple of things, and I started addressing this a little bit yesterday, but I want to speak to this very specifically. So we talked last time about what Genesis says about the creation of human beings, right? So Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let him rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, the skies, blah, 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 blah." And God created man in his own image, and he created him male and female, he created them. Right? So man was created male and female. However, this is what I thought was very interesting, is that in Genesis 2:6, it says, "The Lord formed man from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." King James says man became a living soul. Right? So that's what King James said. Now, the thing that I find most interesting is that there's no mention of a body, but then there is a mention of the body in the second verse. So that gives me this idea that we were spirit first, and then the body came. Now, the other thing that, a couple of other things that, did I put? Yeah, I did put Tower of Babel. So this is what the Bible says about our creation, right? There are also, let me do this before I go to Mark and Kenny. We'll come over here for a second. So when I was growing up, there was this television show that was a landmark television show called Roots, and they took an unprecedented amount of time to go through Alex Haley's autobiography, it was much more than an autobiography because it did his whole family lineage. And so Alex Haley wrote this book. They did a mini-series that actually lasted 2 weeks, which was pretty significant to have 5 evenings of about 3 hours each, 10 days of this particular show. And so that was pretty groundbreaking, particularly when I was growing up in the late 70s and early 80s. And so they did their best to show this on TV. They certainly did not have the same kinds of sensibilities that we have now, right? So like the Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead certainly show things that are much more graphic than they would have been in the 70s and 80s. But they did their best given the time they were in. So I want to show this particular clip, and to those, is that kind of the lights? Yeah, the other one. Yeah. So I want to show this particular clip, and then I want you to tell me a little bit about what you think is going on, right? So this is it's just a minute and 45 seconds, but it's pretty profound, particularly given the conversation that we're going to have about this idea of education and equity. So that's turned up. It's turned up, but not turned up. I know the difference. I know the difference. One is a vegetable. Okay, never mind. Never mind.
I want to hear you say your name. Your name is Toby. What's your name? Lord God, help this boy. They're going to put him dead. What's your name? Say it. Toby. Who are you? Say your name. What's your name? Toby. Say it again. Say it louder so they all can hear you. What's your name? Toby. My name is Toby. Aye. That's a good nigger. Cut him down.
So tell me what happened. What did you think?
I would say that, like, you know, more about kind of like having that, but I'm not definitely they're like they're really like thought of it body and feel like I'm like everyone has names and like who I it's like you know like no, if you say his name, though, like, what is he? You know, they're hearing it and it's hard. But then the other people that are watching him that are like friends with him or whatever, they're like hearing it and they're like, you know, say your name and it's like, pick up, whatever. But it's also just like, like that. It's just saying, you know, I'm thinking that. Then maybe everyone else is so much more.
Other folks. Yes, sir. He's trying to break the spirit. One of the things that's important to understand about the transatlantic slave trade that was different, because you'll hear people talk about it. They'll say, well, first of all, African Americans just need to get over it, right? There's been slavery for thousands of years. Why is this, why are we still talking about that stuff? Have you heard people have those kind of conversations, right? Why aren't we still talking about it? Isn't it over? Isn't it past? Well, one of the things that's really interesting is that this process of the transatlantic slave trade was really trying to turn people into things. Right? Trying to turn people into things. And what were those things? We called them slaves, right? And here's the trick about language, right? So if you don't name something what it is, then it doesn't have any real power, right? So by me calling you by your name, that's important. But if I just said, hey girl, or hey boy, or hey dude, that doesn't have the same kind of the importance of recognizing who you are. Right? So the transatlantic slave trade was a process of trying to turn human beings into a hammer. Right? Do you care what happens to your hammer? How many people know where their hammers are right now? Your screwdrivers, or your wrenches, right? Most of us, if we have them, they're thrown in some kind of box and not nicely wrapped in velvet or hung up on them, right? We don't really care about our tools. Right? So, the other part about this, and we'll kind of talk about some of these concepts as it relates to this, is wait. So we'll do that. So let's talk about this idea of humanity. Oh, no, I did that to do this. Sorry, I'm a nutty professor. I did that to come back to this, which is one of the rationalizations for slavery, right? Was this idea that there's a mark of Cain. Who was Cain? According to the Bible, who was Cain? He was just one of the sons of Adam and Eve. He was the older son, and what did he do? He killed his brother, right? Because he didn't offer sacrifice that was accepting. His brother did. He was jealous. He killed his brother. And then something very interesting happens. So, I'm not a biblical scholar, so I don't get all the nuances, but I think it's interesting the language that's used when Cain is having this conversation. And so Cain attacked his brother, verse 4, down here, verse 13, it says, Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you drive me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence, right? So that's the biggest thing. Like he's going to be outside of God's presence, and that's painful to him. He doesn't like that. And then he said, I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, for whoever finds me will kill me. Wait a minute. I thought it was just Adam and Eve, Abel, and Cain and Abel, right? But apparently there are other people on the planet as well. Now, here's the part that I thought is really interesting. But the Lord said to him, not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So what slave traders did is they took this particular piece. So what's the implication of being Cain? Are there good things that come from Cain or bad things that come from Cain? Bad, right? I mean, the WWF. There's not a whole lot of, atoms on there, but there's Cain, right? And he's the like murderer type dude, right? Like there's Undertaker. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You guys want to know? Okay, well, wrestling, right? It's professional wrestling? No. Okay, but okay. So look it up. All right, so there's that wrestler named Cain, right? He's, him and the Undertaker are like the killer wrestlers. At any rate, so what slave traders it did is they said, well, there it is right there. It's in the Bible, the mark of Cain. So since people who don't look like us, they must have the mark of Cain. They're not civilized like us. They're obviously being punished, blah, 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 the mark of Cain. So we can enslave them. Right. So, and these are all justifications for this idea of race. Now, here's one of the things I think is most interesting that people misconstrue, which is the Tower of Babel. People say this is where race comes from, the Tower of Babel. Have anyone ever heard someone at least allude to that or try to mention that? Right. That's where race comes from. They misconstrue what is happening, or they misinterpret what is happening at the Tower of Babel. Now, Genesis 11, verse 11. Now the whole world was one language and one common speech. Boom, right? So there we go. One people, one speech, right? And they found a plain of Shinar and settled there. Now, this is the key verse to understanding the Tower of Babel. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and make them thoroughly." So first of all, who are they not listening to? God. So they're not listening to God. So they said to themselves, they're going to do this. Right? So that's number one. So they use bricks instead of stone and mortar. Now, the interesting thing is making bricks as opposed to using stone is kind of interesting, right? Because stone is made by who? God, right? But they're going to make their own bricks, right? So they're making their own stuff. And then they said this very interesting thing. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we can make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." Wait a minute! Why did they build the Tower of Babel? So they wouldn't be scattered. Which meant, what was their commandment? What were they supposed to be doing? Scattering! But they said, we don't want to scatter. We want to just stay right here. So why do you think God had to come down? To scatter them. Because they weren't... What was the commandment to Adam and Eve? Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, which is interesting because means to do again, but I won't go there as to why it says replenish as opposed to just plenish. But this is very interesting, right? So, did God come down to create races? No. So Ronald Reagan said this best, and I don't know, whatever your political leanings are or whatnot, but I think he said this best. He said, if aliens were to come down to this planet, we would see more of our commonalities than we see our differences. So if I'm looking from an extraterrestrial view of human beings, what do I see when I see human beings? They look all together. It's like us when we look at cows, but we can tell different kinds of cow. The Angus cow and a dairy cow, and I don't know what other McDonald's cow. No, right? But for the most part, they're all cow. Right? And so when we look at this, what I find interesting is that there's no idea of race involved in this. It's about people being disobedient and God coming down and making sure that His will is done, just that they scatter. Which then lends my brain to think that we are one people and we had one language and we were disobedient, so we got scattered. Which means this idea of race, again, is supported in Scripture as being we're human, right? We're human race. So there's the kind of theology piece of the groundwork I'm trying to establish. So let's go over here to a bit more philosophy, right? So humanity, being human, right? So if I have two humans who participate in the biological process of reproduction, what do they produce? Human. All right, so somebody says human. But let's check it out. We're going to check it out. All right. So I have a Brazilian man who falls in love with a woman from the Congo. They participate in this process. What do they produce? Okay, I didn't hear it. responses to that. Okay, so I have an Aboriginal woman from Australia who falls in love and marries a Canadian, a French Canadian. They get married. They participate in the biological process. What do they produce? A child. Still didn't hear no. So we have a man from China who falls in love and marries a woman from Argentina. They participate in this biological process. What do they produce? So I have a black dude from South Minneapolis who finds this this white woman from Wayzata. They engage in this biological process. What do they produce? Biracial. What does that mean? Mixed baby. Okay, so let me write these words down. Mixed biracial. I apologize for that. I'm Sean. Hi, Sean. So, when you're talking about class, feel free to just stop on my head and present. Good to see you as well. Yeah. We're. Thank you so much. It's great to meet you, Sean. Mixed, biracial, multicultural. Right? Human. The only thing that comes out of this equation is humanity. Now, we create a construct that feeds into these two things, which is this idea of race. What in the dickens is race? What is it? It's skin color. Okay?
Okay, so like race is obviously very like skin color, right? So when people say like biracial, what does that mean? So if you were to have say a black male and a white female.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So what would biracial mean?
That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
You came out of your mouth. You don't know what it means.
No. I'm asking more so just in a context where culture talks about biracial.
Right. Yep. No. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that out. Yes, ma'am.
If that's the extent of all biracial, like my aunt Ireland, the one side of it, I've seen it in all these people, so everyone should. So then you look at that, but learn what it's called.
So here's so we have there's some underlying opinions that assumptions that we have, which is that Genesis 11:11 didn't happen. So when people say I am 100% ... what's the assumption? That there is a 100%. There can't be a 100%. Why? Go ahead. They all came from the same source, right? And whether that is, people believe that is a myth or an actual story. But even atheists and scientists who don't believe in necessarily the Adam and Eve do come to a point where they say there's a mitochondrial Adam and Eve, or in particular a mitochondrial Eve, which means that all of our ancestors get traced back to one individual female. Right? So the first assumption is, I'm 100% Irish. That is, you're making the assumption that there is a 100% Irish. So, as far as I can go back 3 generations, 4 generations, after that stuff, go far, right? And then I'm just, yes. I would imagine for some of you, they're similar. We start getting into family legends and that kind of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, even if they don't, even if like they don't that we got in the name, they believe that it came from sub-Saharan Africa, and so every single person would have been black, and then as we spread out our melanin and our pigmentation changed. So
Still on the same place. We make this assumption that race is real. Race is not real. However, the structures that keep feeding into race are very real. Right? This idea of racism structure that's based off of this fallacy is very real. The way we limit people, the way we add value to certain people's lives. So, for example, I find it very interesting that when we're in war, we count our casualties, but you never hear about the other people's casualties. Right? When we the Iraq War, when I heard about like the number of casualties on their side, I was just like, oh my God, what are we doing? Right? And then we had quite a few casualties on our end, but just the countless number of bases, the way that I was just like, we're like, is this really worth it? And we can debate that or whatnot. So humanity is extremely important. There is never a time when we're not human. Even when we don't act like it. We are always human. Right? However, if I can get you to think that you're a thing, like this idea of being white. Being white is being a thing. Right? Yes, ma'am.
Like, if all, like, whoever white were, like, also, like, someone's, like, different skin, like, oh, you're different than us, we had the same. So, like, that's, like, why was it the white, why was it, like, black? Like, why did it come that way? Like, when God made Adam and Eve, like, he knew that this would happen, that was such a big, like, factor in our lives, and, like, how come, like, Adam and Eve, they're quote-unquote white, so, like, then they would look at that and be like, some people are acting like some people are happening. And even people that are, like, biblical, they were still, like, putting down black, so, like, whatever, like, what if it was, like, like, what if it was, like, black was down, what, with, like,
Yeah, no, you asked a really powerful question, and the way that I will answer most of those questions you just asked is that is not what happened. Right? So what if things were turned? What if? Right? Those are great things to think about, but that's not how it played out. And I have some explanation or some things that I like to offer as explanation as to why that happened. But that's your question. Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna ask her question. I asked why wasn't it maybe black people present like with no reason? Yeah, I think part of it also just because maybe white culture just happened to be a culture that was just full of technological innovation and became more advanced. I'd say
advanced is relative is a relative term, right? So like if I stuck you out in the middle of the Sahara, could you survive? Maybe possibly, right? I mean, there are MacGyvers in this world that, right? But the people who are in that environment, who live there all the time, can they survive in that environment? Yeah, so they know what roots to eat, where to get water, blah, 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 right? So they're technically more advanced than you would be in their context, right? So even the way we talk about that stuff, we got to be real conscious of some of our unconscious bias around what is technology. Technology is the use of tools, right? And depending on your context, my iPad would do me no good in the middle of the Sahara, other than for a shovel to try to do something, right? At the same time, in a different context, I can get a lot of stuff done on my iPad, right? So those things become important. Just want to address this one question, and we'll talk more about it in greater detail. Earth, Sun. What is this? What is the relationship between the Sun and the equator? This, right? So the Sun shines a lot heavier and brighter and denser on the equator. Right? What do people look like on the equator? They're dark. So we get dark people here. As you move forward, what happens to sunlight as you move towards the poles? It's less sunlight, right? And to the point that, Alaska and some of the upper Arctic regions have 6 months of daylight and 6 months of night, right? So why are the people darker at the equator? Because the sun is beating down on them, but what is the biological response to the sun? Okay, so you lay out in the sun to get what is the tan? Yeah, it's your melanin or your melatonin, right? So towards the equator, melatonin increases. As you leave from the equator and go to the poles, it what? It decreases. And here's the trick as to why. Why is it? So the sun, it is, our bodies are responding to the sun. There's something even more primal than that. It deals with our biological functions as it relates to the sun. What do we get from the sun that keeps our metabolism operating? Vitamin D. So here, these folks are getting tons of vitamin D. What happened at the poles? Not as much. So how does their body respond to the decrease in sunlight? They open the shades and they turn down their melanin. So as we move from the equator and we go to the poles, we start to notice that people get lighter. Now, here's something that's also very interesting. What are growing seasons like in this equator region, this equatorial region? It's tropic, right? Which means what? What are growing seasons? Are they short or long? Long, right? So we get long growing seasons. We got long growing seasons. What do we think about time? Since I have a long growing season, I can get food anytime I want. I can sleep. I'm very relaxed. When do I start thinking about time? Is time that important to me? No. Why? Right? Yeah. So I'm lax about time. Now let's come up here. Growing seasons, long or short? Short. Why? Sun is only around for so long, and I have long winters. What do I think about time? It's valuable. Time is very valuable. what's my relationship in the equator? What's my relationship to nature? How do I feel about nature? I like it. Yes, it's very useful. It's friendly. That nature is good to me because of all these other things. So good nature. Framework. What happens here in these? Well, yeah, nature is to be fought. Nature is to be fought. Do we start to see some rationale between as to why some of these kind of Nordic or subarctic cultures have a drive that's different than some of these warmer climates? So going back to your question, why was it that that white people, I think that's what you used, is that right? Yeah, felt the need to conquer, blah, 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 blah. When I start looking at this kind of model, it starts to give me some information as to why that might be, right? So, those are some constructs to start thinking about how we start talking about this equity. Yes, go ahead.
Like once about like you're starting to like look at like one growing season the last time like they really judged that like
So if I'm fighting nature, right? Then when I see, so let's say I migrate from here down to here. What do I say about these people? I see them chilling, picking fruit, not harvesting, planting, that kind of stuff. What might I say about these people? Go ahead. That they're primitive, right? Or they're not as advanced, or they're not blah, blah, blah. Because I have to fight for everything. Time is important. Let's make that happen. So I wouldn't say necessarily that they were jealous per se, but I would say that having a different view of those things produced a kind of a different worldview. So we end up with these clashes of worldviews, right? So again, if we look at the early colonies in the United States, or we'll just say the colonies, because it wasn't the United States yet, but we look at the colonies, they would not have survived had it not been for those primitives who taught them how to grow food, right? So even in our language, when we think about, what is a primitive culture? Well, context is everything. Because here we have these European settlers coming over to this new land, don't know how to do anything, right? So who's primitive then? So those are some things, and this is referred to as the ice versus sun theory of culture. But we'll delve into some other stuff too. Is this at least kind of okay? So there's that. So I want to talk a little bit about these three in the last 8 minutes that I have. These kinds of concepts. I want you to think about these. This idea of freedom versus liberty. Right? What is freedom? How would you define freedom? How would you define choice? Okay. Would you define freedom? Being able to do what you please. Freedom. Do you have that? Do you have the ability to do what you please? partially automatic. Okay. Is it the Ducati bicycle motorcycle? Right. And it goes up to about 210 miles an hour. What's that? Ducati is a car, right? What's the motorcycle? Is it Ducati the car? I mean the motorcycle. But let's just talk about the car, right? So $4 million, is that right? For a Bugatti, right? Car can go how fast? Fast. All right. So let's say 200 miles an hour. Will I ever go 200 miles per hour? Any of you have cars that go 120? To say it on the thing, no number, right? Have you ever gone 120? Do you anticipate that you'll ever go 120? Right? No. Right? Why? It's dangerous. Because you have freedom. Now, the interesting thing about freedom, and we were talking about this earlier, right? So, anyone ever join a gym? Been a part of the gym or something like that? Or YMCA, YWCA, something like that. All right, cool. Do they give out guest passes? Right. So, guest passes, and how long is that pass? It's usually a day, right? Do the guests on that day have access to everything in the facility? More or less, just about, right? All right. As a member, what would be the difference between having a guest pass and having a membership? Membership lasts longer, right? So the person's a visitor for one time, and the membership lasts longer. And as a member, as a paying member, you have access to what? Everything that they have to offer, right? Everything that they have to offer. However, if you stop paying, what happens to your membership? It gets taken away, right? Anyone jog on your own? Work out on your own? You jumping jacks? All right. Who sanctions you to do that? Where can you do that? You can do that anywhere. Nobody sanctions you. You pay fees to do that. Right? No. Freedom is granted through membership. For example, I rob a bank. What do they take away from me? My freedom. Why? Because I'm a member of the society. And we talked about this idea of jogging and stretching any place that I want. In that I have liberty. So even if I'm not a member of anything, I still have liberty. And a lot of times people are fighting for freedom. They're fighting for rights as a member when they should be looking at liberty. Because without membership, I should still be able to have a place to live. I should be able to have clean water. Even if I don't belong, I should be able to have these things. I should be able to move freely anywhere that I want without showing papers, right? Those are liberties. And it's interesting, in our early documents of the United States, it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't say much about freedom in that particular piece. But we'll move on to that. Then there are this idea of human rights versus civil rights. Human rights are the rights that you are given because you are human. And we can find those in the Declaration of Human Rights in the 1965 Charter of the United Nations. Right? Civil rights are granted by whom? Governments. So the United States has a bill of, well, we grant this idea of civil rights through a number of our laws. So civil rights are given by governments. It could be argued that human rights are given by God, that have been captured in the 1964-65 Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations. Right? And then there's this idea of civil liberties versus civil rights. And I have videos on all of those on Moodle. So if you can pay attention to those on Moodle. Yeah. So when we come back, I'd like to have some conversations about the transatlantic slave trade, American educational history, the Reconstruction of 1876, and the 14th Amendment. So this video of the Reconstruction of 1876 really deals with the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, and the 14th Amendment is mentioned in that video. Those videos are about 15 minutes long. Shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes to do those. Really good stuff. Love the work they do. But I really want to have some conversations. If you get down to these other pieces, it would not hurt you to have those conversations, and then we'll just zip right along. All right. Any comments, observations? All right. Thank you. I hope that these historical pieces aren't boring to you, but actually give some foundation to the other stuff that we do, because you understand what's going on when we try to deconstruct or reconstruct our society. All right. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Sandra, next, do you have time after? How would you have?
Yeah. Okay.
I had to go through some of them. I didn't know if you could go through it.
Yeah, in the fall.
All of them.
I like it.
Yeah.
I just kind of like, you said, I kind of felt overwhelmed for a second.
Yeah. No. Okay. So this this feedback response is on Moodle, and you can use that to write.
So info essays, oh, you said you want to So just like, is there a forum that we just write, whenever, I guess, turn it into like, how many class grades would you want to
Do 2 or 4.
And then, and just, I mean, is it just like kind of how staff corresponds to it, or just like, I mean, is it more like just kind of our notes?
No, I'm more interested in your thought process.
Right.
So so as we talk about these topics, what are you thinking? What are you responding to?
All right.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then the 4 community learning events, do we have like things we choose from, like how?
Yeah. So on, because there's another class coming in.
Yes.
On Moodle, there is.
I don't know if I can get a time to come talk to you so that I can go all through this.
Yep. As a matter of fact, if you have time right now, we can go on
Right.
upstairs. If you follow me up.
Yeah.
Go talk about that. Cool. Das ist cool. Das ist cool.